My name is Scarlett. I am 22 years old, and this is my story. I grew up in a very small town. The name of my town was Greenfield. It was a pretty name. The town was green. There were many trees and fields. Life in Greenfield was simple. It was quiet. Everyone knew everyone. When I walked down the street, people smiled. They said hello. "Good morning, Scarlett," Mrs. Gable from the bakery would say. "How is your mother?" It was nice. It was safe. My family lived in a small house with a blue door. My father worked at the local hardware store. My mother grew beautiful flowers in our garden. I had a good childhood. I had friends. We played in the fields. We rode our bikes down the empty roads. But as I got older, the small town started to feel too small. The quiet started to feel too quiet. My world felt very limited. I had a big dream. My dream was the city. I saw it in movies. I read about it in magazines. The city was a place of bright lights, tall buildings that touched the sky. It was full of people, busy people, interesting people. In the city, there were endless things to do. Museums, theaters, big parks, and shops with beautiful clothes in the windows. It seemed like a place where life was exciting, where anything could happen. I wanted that. I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted a new life. I finished my studies in my small town. I worked for a year at the local library. It was a nice job. It was quiet. But every day, I dreamed of the city. I saved my money. Every dollar went into a special box under my bed. The box had pictures of the city taped to it. It was my dream box. When I told my parents I wanted to move, they were worried. My mother's face looked sad. "The city is so big, Scarlett," she said. Her voice was soft. "People are not always kind there. You will be all alone." I hugged her. "I'll be okay, Mom," I said. "I need to try. It's my dream." My father was quiet. He just looked at me. "Be careful," he said finally, "and call us every week." I promised I would. My friends were a little different. They were excited for me. "Wow, Scarlett, the big city," my best friend Lily said. "You're so brave." But I could also see a little sadness in her eyes. We had been friends our whole lives. Saying goodbye would be hard. The day I left, my heart felt like it was doing two things at once. It was jumping with excitement, but it was also heavy with sadness. My mother cried. She held me so tight. "Don't forget us," she whispered. "I could never forget you," I said, my own tears starting to fall. My father gave me a long hug. He put some extra money in my hand. "Just in case," he said. Lily gave me a small gift. It was a picture of us, laughing in a field of flowers. "So you don't get too lonely," she said. I got on the bus. I waved goodbye from the window. I watched my small town get smaller and smaller. The green fields turned into highways. I held my dream box on my lap. I was scared, but I was also full of hope. I was on my way to my new life. The city was waiting for me. I thought it was the beginning of my perfect story. I was wrong. I was so very wrong. I should have stayed home. The bus ride was long. I watched the countryside change into suburbs, and then, finally, into the city. My first look at the city was from the bus window. The buildings were even taller than in the pictures. They were huge, like giants made of glass and steel. The streets were filled with cars. Yellow taxis honked their horns. People were everywhere, rushing, walking so fast. No one was smiling. No one looked at each other. It was so loud. The noise was a constant roar. It was very different from the quiet of Greenfield. I got off the bus at a huge station. It was confusing. So many people, so many signs. I held my suitcase tightly. I felt very small, very lost already. A man bumped into me. He didn't say sorry. He just kept walking. I felt a small shiver of fear. My mother's words came back to me. People are not always kind there. I took a taxi to the apartment I had found online. The pictures online looked nice, bright and clean. The real apartment was different. It was in a very old building. The hallway was dark and smelled like old food. My apartment was on the 4th floor. There was no elevator. I had to carry my heavy suitcase up all the stairs. When I opened the door, my heart sank a little. The room was tiny, much smaller than my bedroom at home. There was one small window. I looked out the window. I didn't see a beautiful city view. I saw a brick wall, the wall of the next building. It was so close, I could almost touch it. The room was dark, even in the middle of the day. I put my suitcase down. The silence in the room was strange. It wasn't the peaceful quiet of my hometown. It was an empty quiet, a lonely quiet. I sat on the edge of the small bed. I was finally here, in the city, in my new home. But it didn't feel like a home. It felt like a small, gray box. For the first time, a thought came into my head. A thought I pushed away quickly. Maybe this was a mistake. The first week was hard. I needed to find a job. I had my savings, but the city was very expensive. The rent for my tiny apartment was more than I could believe. I bought a new, smart-looking outfit. I printed my resume. I walked the busy streets, looking for help-wanted signs. I went into office buildings. The receptionists were always busy. They looked at me without a smile. "You can leave your resume," they would say in a bored voice. I left my resume in many places. No one called me back. The days were long. I would wake up early, put on my smart clothes, walk for hours, come back to my dark apartment, feeling tired and defeated. The city that looked so exciting in movies now looked cold and unwelcoming. The tall buildings felt like they were looking down on me. The busy people on the streets made me feel invisible. I ate my meals alone, usually just a sandwich or some noodles. I didn't have a proper kitchen, just a small microwave and a hot plate. I would sit at my tiny table and look at the brick wall outside my window. I missed my mother's cooking. I missed sitting at the dinner table with my family. I missed the sound of their voices. I called my parents every Sunday, just like I promised. I tried to sound cheerful. "How is the city, honey?" my mother would ask. Her voice always sounded worried. "It's great, Mom," I would say. My voice sounded fake, even to me. "It's so big and exciting. I'm looking for a job. I'm sure I'll find one soon." I didn't tell her about the rejections. I didn't tell her about the lonely apartment. I didn't tell her that I cried myself to sleep most nights. I didn't want her to worry more. I wanted to be the brave daughter who followed her dream. But I felt like a scared little girl who was lost. After 3 weeks, my money was getting low. Panic started to set in. I had to find a job, any job. I stopped looking for office jobs. I started looking in cafes, shops, restaurants. Finally, a small, busy coffee shop hired me. The manager, a man named Mr. Henderson, was always stressed. He talked fast. "You can start tomorrow," he said, without even really looking at me. "Be here at 6 in the morning. Don't be late." I was so relieved to have a job, any job. But the work was hard. I was on my feet all day, making coffee, cleaning tables, taking orders from impatient people. People in the city were always in a hurry. They didn't smile or say please. They just wanted their coffee fast. My colleagues were busy too. We didn't talk much. We just worked. At the end of the day, I was so tired. My feet hurt. My back ached. I would walk home through the dark streets. The city lights didn't look magical anymore. They just looked bright and cold. This was not the life I had dreamed of. My dream was of an exciting career, of meeting interesting people, of exploring a wonderful city. My reality was a tiny, dark room, a tiring, low-paying job, and a deep, aching loneliness that never went away. The loneliness was the worst part. It was a constant companion, a heavy blanket that covered everything. In Greenfield, I was never truly alone. There was always someone to talk to. Here, in a city with millions of people, I felt completely isolated. I was surrounded by people, but I was not with them. We were like ships passing in the night, close, but never connecting. I tried to make friends. I really did. I would smile at my colleagues. "Nice day today," I might say. They would just nod and keep working. I tried talking to a woman who lived in the apartment next to mine. I saw her in the hallway one day. "Hi, I'm Scarlett. I just moved in," I said with a friendly smile. She just looked at me, gave a small, quick nod, and rushed inside her apartment. She locked the door. I heard the sound of the lock click. It felt like she was locking me out. The whole city was locking me out. I tried exploring the city on my weekends, my one day off. I went to a big museum. I saw beautiful paintings, but I saw them alone. I saw couples holding hands, laughing. I saw families with their children. I felt like a ghost, watching life, but not part of it. I walked through a famous park. It was beautiful. Green trees, a lovely pond. But everyone seemed to be with someone. friends having picnics, people playing music together. I sat on a bench by myself. I looked at the picture Lily gave me, the picture of us laughing. A tear rolled down my cheek. I missed my friends. I missed my home. One day, something happened that made everything worse. I was on the subway, coming home from work. I was very tired. The subway was crowded. So many people pushed together. I was holding onto a pole. When I got off at my stop, I reached into my pocket for my keys. My pocket was empty. I checked my other pocket. Nothing. I checked my bag. My wallet was gone. Someone had stolen it. In that crowded train, someone had taken my wallet right out of my bag. My heart started beating so fast. All my money was in there. Not much, but it was everything I had until my next payday. My ID card was in there. My bus pass. I felt a wave of pure panic. I stood in the middle of the busy subway station. People rushed past me. No one noticed the girl standing there, about to cry. I felt so violated, so helpless, and so alone. I walked home. It was a long walk. I had no money for a bus. Every step felt heavy. I got to my apartment building. I didn't even have my keys. I had to buzz the building manager. He was an old, grumpy man. He let me in, complaining the whole time. A kind neighbor would have helped, but I had no kind neighbors. I didn't have any neighbors who knew my name. That night, I sat in my dark room. I didn't turn on the light. The city outside was loud. Sirens, horns. But in my room, the silence was deafening. I had never felt so alone in my entire life. I had no money, no friends, no one to help me. My big dream, my beautiful dream of the city. It was gone. In its place was this nightmare. This cold, lonely, scary nightmare. I curled up on my bed, and I cried. I cried for a long, long time. I cried for my stolen wallet. I cried for my tiring job. I cried for my dark little room. But mostly, I cried for the girl who got on the bus with so much hope. The girl who thought the city would solve all her problems and give her a magical life. I cried because I knew deep in my heart that she was gone, and I didn't know who was left. That night, I truly believed it. I should have stayed home. I should have never left Greenfield. The days after my wallet was stolen were the hardest. I felt broken. The small bit of confidence I had was gone. I had to call my parents. I had to tell them what happened. I hated making that call. I felt like a failure. "Mom," I said, my voice shaking. I lost my wallet. I couldn't bring myself to say it was stolen. It felt too scary, too real. My mother's voice was full of worry. "Oh, Scarlett, are you okay? Are you hurt?" Her first thought was about me, not the money. That made me cry again. "I'm okay," I whispered. "Just scared." My father got on the phone. "We are sending you some money right now, sweetheart," he said. His voice was firm and calm. It made me feel a little safer. "Don't worry about the money. Just take care of yourself." They sent the money. It arrived the next day. I was so grateful, but I also felt a deep sense of shame. I was 22 years old. I came to the city to be independent, and here I was, needing my parents to save me. I felt like a child again. My dream of being a strong, successful city woman felt like a joke. At work, Mr. Henderson was not sympathetic. "You lost your wallet. That's your problem," he said. "Just make sure you're on time for your shift." My colleagues heard me talking about it. One of them, a girl named Maria, gave me a sad look. Later, in the break room, she quietly handed me a sandwich. "Here," she said, "you probably didn't have money for lunch." It was a small act of kindness. The first one I had received in a long time. It made my eyes fill with tears. "Thank you," I said. She just nodded and walked away. We didn't become friends, but for a moment, I felt a tiny connection, a tiny spark in the darkness. But the darkness was still very big. I started to hate the city. I hated the noise. I hated the crowds. I hated the feeling of being invisible and unsafe. I started to stay in my apartment as much as possible. I would go to work, come straight home, lock the door. I didn't go for walks anymore. I didn't explore. The city was my enemy now, a monster that had chewed up my dream and spit it out. My life became a dull routine. Wake up in the dark, go to work, serve coffee to rude people, come home to my dark room, eat a sad little dinner, watch something on my small laptop, go to sleep, and then do it all over again. I felt like a machine, a sad, lonely machine. I wasn't living. I was just existing. I started to think about Greenfield all the time. I dreamed of the green fields, the quiet streets, the friendly faces. I imagined sitting in my mother's garden, feeling the warm sun on my face. I imagined laughing with Lily. I missed the simplicity, the safety, the feeling of belonging. Why did I ever leave? What was I trying to prove? I thought about giving up, packing my bags, taking the bus back home. The thought was so tempting. I could just go home, back to my old room, back to my old life. It would be easy. It would be safe. But something stopped me. A small, stubborn part of me. If I went home now, I would be admitting defeat. I would be running away. And what then? Would I be happy in Greenfield, knowing that I had failed? Knowing that the big world was too much for me. I was trapped. I was miserable in the city. But the thought of going home felt like another kind of failure. I didn't know what to do, so I did nothing. I just continued my gray routine. Day after day, week after week. The nightmare continued. One rainy Saturday, I was feeling especially low. The rain was hitting my window, the one that looked at the brick wall. The sound was sad. I didn't have to work. I had the whole day to be alone with my miserable thoughts. I was scrolling through pictures on my phone. Pictures of home. Pictures of my friends. It made the ache in my chest worse. I decided I couldn't just sit there. I had to do something. Anything. I put on my coat and went outside. I didn't have a plan. I just started walking in the rain. I walked for a long time. I ended up in a neighborhood I had never seen before. The streets were quieter here. The buildings were smaller. There were little shops, a bookstore, a bakery. And then I saw it, the local library. It was a small, friendly-looking building, not big and intimidating like the libraries downtown. On an impulse, I went inside. It was warm and dry. It smelled like old paper and books. A wonderful smell. The smell of my old job. The smell of a safe place. I walked through the aisles. I ran my fingers over the spines of the books. For the first time in months, I felt a little bit of peace. This was a world I understood, a quiet world of stories. I found a cozy chair in a corner, and I sat down. I picked up a book. I didn't even look at the title. I just started reading. I read for hours. I forgot about the rain. I forgot about my lonely apartment. I forgot about my terrible job. I was lost in someone else's story. It was a wonderful escape. When I finally looked up, it was getting dark outside. The library was closing soon. As I was getting ready to leave, I saw a notice board. It was covered in flyers. Community events, classes, groups. The same kind of board we had at the Greenfield Library. My eyes stopped on one small flyer. It was for a weekly book club. They met right here in this library. Every Wednesday evening. New members are always welcome, it said at the bottom. My heart gave a little flutter. A book club. A group of people who like to read. People who came to this quiet, safe place. The thought of going was terrifying. Talking to strangers. What would I say? They probably all knew each other already. I would be an outsider. But then I thought about my other option. Going back to my silent room. Spending another evening alone. The idea of the book club was scary. But the idea of my loneliness was even scarier. I took a picture of the flyer with my phone. I didn't know if I would be brave enough to go, but it was a possibility. A tiny seed of an idea. That night, for the first time in a long time, my thoughts weren't just about how miserable I was. They were about the book club. What book were they reading? What were the people like? The tiny seed of an idea started to grow. Maybe, just maybe, my story wasn't over yet. Maybe there was another chapter. One that I had to write myself. The next Wednesday, I felt sick with nerves all day. The book club meeting was at 7 o'clock. All afternoon at work, I thought about not going. It would be so much easier to just go home. To hide in my little room. Hiding was safe. Hiding was what I was good at now. But when my shift ended, I didn't walk towards my apartment. I walked towards the library. My legs felt shaky. My heart was pounding. This is silly, I told myself. It's just a book club. But it felt like so much more. It felt like a choice. A choice between staying in my nightmare or trying to find a door out. I got to the library. I stood outside the door of the meeting room for a full 5 minutes. I almost turned around and left. But then I took a deep breath. I thought about my lonely room, and I opened the door. There were about 8 people sitting around a big table. They were mostly older than me. They all looked up when I came in. For a second, no one said anything. I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. Then a woman with kind eyes and gray hair smiled at me. "Hello there," she said. "Are you here for the book club?" I nodded, unable to speak. Come in, come in. We were just about to start," she said. "I'm a leaner. Find a seat." I found an empty chair and sat down. My hands were sweating. They started talking about the book. I hadn't read it, so I just listened. They talked about the characters. They laughed at some parts. They argued a little about the ending. They were passionate. They were friendly. It felt normal, like a real conversation. At the end of the meeting, Alina turned to me. "We're so glad you came," she said. "What's your name, dear?" "Scarlett," I whispered. "Well, Scarlett, I hope you come back next week," she said. Another man at the table smiled. "Don't worry, we're a friendly group," he said. "Most of the time." Everyone chuckled. I walked home that night. The city streets didn't feel as scary. The noise didn't seem as harsh. I felt lighter. I had talked to people. They had been nice to me. It was such a small thing, but it felt huge. It was a crack of light in my dark world. I went back the next week, and the week after that. I read the books. I started to talk a little more. I learned their names. Alina was a retired teacher. David was a history lover. I told them I was new in the city. Alina gave me advice on the best place to buy cheap, fresh vegetables. David told me about a small, free museum that no tourists knew about. They were small connections, but they were real. The book club didn't magically fix my life. I still had my tiring job. I still lived in my tiny apartment. I still felt lonely sometimes, but I wasn't completely alone anymore. I had Wednesday evenings to look forward to. I had a place where I belonged, even just for a little while. This small change gave me a little more courage. I started to think. The city wasn't a monster. It was just a place. A very big, difficult place. My dream wasn't wrong. But maybe I expected the dream to do all the work. I thought the city would just give me happiness. I realized now that I had to build happiness myself. Even in a hard place, I started to make other small changes. I bought a small plant for my dark room. It was a little bit of green, a little bit of life. It made the room feel less like a box. I started cooking real meals for myself, using the cheap vegetables Alina told me about. Eating a nice, warm meal that I cooked myself felt good. It felt like I was taking care of myself. At work, I started talking to Maria a little more, the girl who gave me the sandwich. I asked her about her life. She told me she was saving money to go to college. We found out we both liked the same kind of music. We started taking our breaks together sometimes. It wasn't a deep friendship like I had with Lily. Not yet, but it was a start. I even started exploring the city again. But this time, I did it differently. I didn't go to the big, famous places that made me feel small and lonely. I went to the small places David told me about. The little museum, a quiet park by the river. I found that the city had peaceful corners too. You just had to look for them. My life is still not the dream I had when I left Greenfield. It's not glamorous or exciting in a movie way. It's hard. The city is still big and often unfriendly. I still miss my home. I still miss my family terribly. But it's not a nightmare anymore. Not completely. I learned something very important. My dream was to move to the city for a new life. But a new life isn't something you find. It's something you build. You build it with small actions. A kind word, a new hobby, a small plant on your windowsill. You build it by finding courage when you are scared. You build it by reaching out, even when you think no one will reach back. I am still Scarlett, but I am not the same girl who got on that bus. That girl was looking for a dream. This girl is learning to build one. It's a slower process. It's a harder process, but it feels more real. If you are listening to this, maybe you feel lost too. Maybe your dream didn't turn out the way you thought it would. Maybe you feel alone in a big, scary world. Please know this. It is okay to be scared. It is okay to feel like you made a mistake. But don't let the nightmare win. Look for a small crack of light, a library, a book club, a person who shows you a tiny bit of kindness, and hold on to it. Nurture it. You are stronger than you know. Building a new life is hard work, but you can do it. You can do this too. Keep going. One small step at a time.